Great.
Fair enough. So we'll let you introduce yourself.
Okay, great. Well, I'm Sheila Shockey. I'm the president of Shockey Consulting Services, and thanks a lot for meeting with me via Skype. Usually I would meet with you in person, but this week I had a ton of meetings already scheduled, so it just seemed like this would work out. So I hope I'm glad it worked out fine for you as well. A little bit about myself. First of all, I'm originally from Kansas. Grew up in a small town, 200 people in western Kansas. Went to college also in Kansas, and have lived in Kansas my whole life. Our company was founded in 18 years ago, so we've been around for a while, and we have a variety of different services that we offer, and one of those being working with community groups and committees to come up with decisions on infrastructure, facilities, and other community-type decisions that you would need to make. My background personally is in city management. I was an assistant city manager before going to work for an engineering firm, and then ultimately started my own company. We have 13 employees. We're located in Lenexa, Kansas, and we work primarily in Kansas and Missouri, and have worked for all different size cities, some very small, some more medium-sized like yourself, and then larger communities such as Unified Government in Kansas City, Kansas, and KCMO. And then we also have an office, one-person office in St. Louis area, and so we've worked in that area as well. In terms of the decision that's before you, it sounds like the decision that you need to make is what to do about City Hall. A big decision for your community. Sounds like you have 3 different options that you're looking at based on the conversation I had with your city manager, and that you formed a committee and have an architect to work with you to really develop some details about those different options. And so what we would suggest to you is that we meet in advance of any meetings with your committee that you have formed to identify what outcomes you're looking for, gather some information that you've already collected, and meet with your architect that you have on staff, currently under contract, to find out what information they have as well, and then plan any sessions that we would have. The proposal that I provided to you would be the planning session. We would do some research and send you or the participants a questionnaire in advance of the meeting. We find that works pretty well because we want to make sure that we understand from the group what their shared outcomes are that they're looking for, either with a new facility or reusing the facility or kind of expanding the facility that you have currently. I want to understand what it is that they would like to ultimately accomplish with that decision that's made. And then would have a committee meeting or 2. Not sure how many you were thinking that you would want to have with that group. We've worked a variety of different ways, either with a committee or a fairly large group that would provide you feedback into that process. And we would structure the meeting so that it's productive conversation. Sometimes we work in smaller groups and then in a larger group to kind of come to the ultimate conclusion that you're looking for whatever issues before you. And then we would write up a summary report. Could even do a presentation of on behalf of that committee on what you decided to recommend to the commissioners. And so that's my understanding. I guess I have a couple questions for you all, just having talked briefly with your city manager. And I understand that the committee would then make a recommendation to the city commission. Is that correct?
That's correct. Okay.
And then I did put together some pricing for you, so I don't know, I can answer questions about that as well, but did some probably would meet ahead of time, have that background information pulled together, have at that time we decide how many meetings you wanted to have with the committee, if it was one meeting or if it was several, and then put the report together, and then any follow-up that you would need would be done kind of on an hourly basis. We have urban planners on staff. I think some of that would be helpful sometimes if you do decide to move to a new location. Just thinking about how that fits within the context of your community can be helpful. Having the background in city management, I've worked in city halls, so I know how they need to function for the customer as well as for the staff. So I think I can kind of help the architect and the staff kind of think through some of those issues, which I think is helpful. And then just strong facilitation skills, I think, is what you need on that. You may have a lot of different people in your community that have different ideas about the right thing to do, and we'll design a process to help you come to conclusion on the right thing to do to move forward so that you can ultimately have the space needed for your staff and for the community. So that's probably all I have. I'm open to questions and just having a conversation with you.
Sheila, we have a situation here where emotions are very high. I'm sure you've dealt with things like that before.
Yes.
The hospital, Mercy decided to close our hospital. You know, it was their hospital. They owned it. And they were either going to bulldoze the building or donate it to the city. And even that decision was extremely divisive. People's feelings are very raw about losing our hospital. And so there are people that just can't stand the idea of moving the hospital to the new building. Moving City Hall to the old hospital building. But others just as adamantly think, why would we not move it to this building, which is, 75 years newer than our City Hall? So feelings will be very, very strong at these hearings, and you will have a crowd. You know, we're thinking we'll have a committee that's going to be voting, but all the meetings have to be public. And so you'll have a crowd on your hands, I imagine, every time you get together with them. So have you had experience with things like that?
Yeah, so I have, and, we do comprehensive land use plans. I'll just give you an example of one time that we had 250 people in the room, and they had the misunderstanding that the planning process was about implementing zoning in a county, and we had a lot of people upset about that. And so, a lot of, yelling and negativity. So being able to really kind of handle people and understand listen to what they're saying, but also kind of shut them off and say, hey, we've got a process that's structured. Here's how we're going to take input. We want to make sure that we get through to everybody and we can listen and hear those thoughts is important. But I think a lot, so I've been doing this, working with communities since 1990, so a long time. And having a process that's structured in a way that allows for that input but doesn't allow it to get out of hand is super important. One thing I would recommend that you maybe try to do is to get people to come together and talk about what they want to get out of the process rather than jumping to what is the right solution first. So if it's important to save a structure that you have already, or if it's important to people that it be used, that the hospital be used to its highest and best use, what would that be? Or is it important that it's a facility that can be easily accessed by the community? Those are kind of big picture types of outcomes. Kind of getting people to start up there makes it easier to then walk through the different alternatives and kind of evaluate those alternatives based on the outcomes that you're looking for. So kind of getting people to agree to that first is important so that they understand that the decisions that are then ultimately recommended, how those fit into the bigger picture goals that you're trying to accomplish. It sounds kind of high level thinking, but it's really about what do we value as a community and what are we trying to get out of this decision that we're trying to make, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Some other examples, almost everything we do, people call us in because it's controversial. So we're not afraid to kind of jump into that. We do a lot of work with committees that are raising sewer rates, or they're raising water rates, or they have a funding issue that they're trying to solve. And oftentimes people have real strong opinions about taxation and rates and that sort of thing, financing issues.
No way.
So, we're used to that type of thing. And I think structuring the process in a way that's very outcome oriented rather than having people just jump into it with their opinions is the way to handle that.
All right.
Sheila?
Do some things online first to kind of get people a venue to kind of talk about things online, or have like kind of a outcome oriented meeting before you kind of jump into different alternatives. That'd be another suggestion I would give you.
Okay.
Sheila, what process do you use, and the technology that you would implement or use for the consensus building process as we go through this whole committee? I'm thinking in terms of, do you use clicker technology? Do you have a prescribed set of questions? Because the phraseology of the questions becomes very key in trying to obtain the information that allows people to make well-informed decisions. Can you address that for us, please?
Yeah, I mean, we've used a variety of different tools. Oftentimes, if we're working with a committee that has to come up with a recommendation, we send out maybe a SurveyMonkey questionnaire in advance to kind of see where people have common understanding, or they have common outcomes that they're looking to develop as a part of the process. And so we might use that online questionnaire ahead of time. And like I said, you may even want that to be open to the public, where you're getting some feedback from the public early on some questions that you would answer, and then bring that to the committee. We do have clickers that we've used. So we've had, kind of preferences. We would put up different alternatives and have people indicate their preference using clickers. We've used things called, dotocracy, where people go up and these are the different alternatives, and you stick a dot on the thing. It's not very high tech, but it's often, if you have a large group, it works really well, because then people get a chance to, you can kind of adapt to the size of audience that you have, especially if you're going to allow the public to provide a lot of feedback and input. You can adjust based on your crowd that you have. So just a variety of different things we've tried in the past. We've done things like visual preference surveys, where people look at pictures and we ask, so that's kind of probably more down the road for your process, but, what do you want the building to look like, or how do you want it to function? And asking questions like that with clickers works really well.
What about size of a committee for optimum results-based recommendations? Do you have a recommendation? Yeah,
I think because the decision that you're making, people already do have like pretty strong opinions, and it could be a controversial decision. You might want to have a fairly large group. We work typically between 12 and 20. We've worked with upwards to 40 on a committee. But the main thing that we would do with you first is to kind of walk through, who are your community leaders, what groups have an... Here we go.
Hey, Sheila.
Hey, I was just trying to call Tony.
Sorry about that. Our computer locked up or something, but we blamed it on you, since we could. All right.
Technology.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
So you were talking that you had facilitated 12 to 20 members in a committee and up to 40, and then that's basically where we lost you.
Okay, sure. So I think the size of the group is probably something that we would want to talk to you about. We would want to make sure that it covers geographically your community and has representation of key stakeholders that you feel like are important, that have that are community leaders who really have a lot of status in the community. Because if you are going to make a decision like this, you're going to want to have people on the committee that others will look to say, yeah, they did think through this and had made a good decision. So I think the size, we can accommodate how you want to do it.
All right. That's fair.
One of the things about what we face here, Sheila, is City Hall is an issue, but we also have other infrastructure issues that have been many years in the making in terms of streets, sewers, water treatment plant. And one of the issues I think the community faces is do we put all our eggs in one basket, or do we put eggs in several baskets to try to address different issues infrastructure-wise that we face that are obviously infrastructure is very important and very expensive. How would you try to meld this all together if given the opportunity?
Yeah, so we do work a lot with communities on developing infrastructure priorities and infrastructure plans. And, one thing you may want to think about is trying to bring, maybe you would have this be a group that would be just looking at major infrastructure reinvestment or investments. And that may be a good way to keep it from being such a one issue that's kind of a lightning rod. You could have it be more of a broad thing about we only have so much limited resources to spend in the next 5 years. I'm sure you have a capital improvements plan, but where do we spend those major dollars to provide the best value to our community? And we do strategic plans for communities, and a lot of those types of issues are, the main focus of the conversation, which is, what are the big picture ticket items that you want to try to invest in. And so you may want to have it be a broader committee if you think that might be helpful to you to have that community input.
Okay.
Could you take us through typically how you'd organize such a committee, how you would get from step 1 to step 2 to step 3 to the final recommendation phase or step, whatever you want to call it?
Sure. So we have a pretty tried and true process that we use, and the first step is to meet with you to identify the questions that you want answered. And that may sound like, oh, that's simple. We want to figure out, where City Hall should go. Should it be this option, this option, this option? But oftentimes there's sub-questions to those questions. And so we kind of like to understand the issue in pretty good detail so we can really identify, and we actually document, these are the questions, the charge of the committee. Then we look at the issue, and we talk about who should be involved in that decision-making process. And so we would help you identify who your committee would be if you would like us to do that. And so we have, a lot of and this would be something that you would really drive, but we would just kind of help you document. So we go through that process and figure out who should be involved. How do we get them engaged? Oftentimes clients will have us draft a letter from the mayor to appoint them, or, however you're going to recruit them to participate. And then we prepare background information for that committee so they understand this is your charge. We identify good days and times to meet. We figure out the right location with the staff that will, sometimes we move those around so that each part of the community feels that, that geographically the representation is easy to get to the meeting. And we provide this background information in advance to the committee. As I said before, oftentimes we will ask them to provide us a pre-meeting questionnaire. So we go on, have them do an online questionnaire that will help us then be prepared for that meeting. We meet with you in advance of the first meeting and each and every other meeting to develop an agenda and agenda materials. And then we facilitate that process and provide summary meeting notes of each meeting so that we have a common shared understanding of what came out of that particular meeting. And then finally, we develop a written recommendations document that we work with the committee on to make sure that they agree to the language that's in the recommendation document that ultimately goes back to the City Commission.
Hey, Sheila, would you be the person to come and lead this effort, or would you send somebody in your firm?
What I had scoped out was for myself to do it, and then I would have somebody probably work with me from the office here, and it'd likely be one of our urban planners that would come with me. It's just easier to facilitate with two people because you have one person that's, kind of writing what's going on and talking and making sure you're facilitating, and the other one kind of listening and making sure that we're capturing everything that's happening. And so it's easy to manage it with two is
Gotcha.
how we typically do it.
Okay. I know that one of the concerns for a lot of people, probably in every small town, you said you're from a town of 200.
Yeah, 200.
Yeah. That's
Beat
a small
that.
town. Yeah. So, it's difficult to protect our downtown these days. Once you get the Walmart in, you lose so much of your retail downtown. And our current City Hall building is downtown, and a lot of people feel like we just can't move it from the downtown. It's kind of our anchor. So can your urban planner or somebody provide the group with some information on how that impacts the decision? Or
Yeah, I feel like that would be part of what you would want to provide as, the alternative you're looking at. This would be some of the land use, impacts of that. Your architect's going to provide you information about the functionality of the facility itself, but where it's located in the context of how it operates would be something that we can help you with.
But specifically, can you give us any help on knowing whether that really has an economic impact on the downtown to have those employees there?
We would probably do case studies to come up with that, because we wouldn't do any we could do specific economic analysis. We didn't include that in our quote, but
Okay.
we do economic impact studies if you wanted to kind of look at that. But I think probably what you would do is just look at kind of some case studies of, like the city of Lawrence has their city hall downtown.
Right.
Other cities, we would look at in kind of similar sized communities and what has happened if they moved that location.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think we could do some case studies to just see what the impact was.
All right.
Do
Fair
some
enough.
research.
Yeah. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Leonard, you're being awfully quiet.
Just listening right now. On the gathering of data and the options, in your form of a meeting, do you look at exploring additional options besides the ones that are already presented, or do you focus on what's been previously prepared?
Yeah, I think you'll probably get people that come up with other ideas about what about this or what about that. And you probably have already heard different locations that people think that the city hall should go. I think you want to try to evaluate all of those if they make sense to pursue. And I would say that your committee would be a good group to say, yeah, that one is one we want to look into a little bit more and make a decision if we want to add that to our list of potential alternatives.
How do you get the information to explore additional options? It would be cost of partial splitting options or expanding an option, looking at an entirely different location. Do you have sources to do that, or does that just come back to us that we need to take that to the next step?
One way to do that is to talk with folks in your real estate community about, values of different properties that are potentially an option. I would imagine that that information I know is available oftentimes with the MLS, also online. Do some research. And then I think your architect would have to look at if the building would be suitable for that particular location. I think that would be kind of some back and forth. Again, it's a land use and a building type of analysis that you would probably need to look at.
So your planner would just kind of look at our comprehensive plan and circulation and growth to kind of make input on areas that might be suited for relocating a new facility or substation or fire EMS.
Yeah, and oftentimes those facilities or government type facilities are located in your future land use map, but that doesn't mean that those are the only places that would make sense. A trend really in city halls is really trying to incorporate the city hall and even retail market. Lenexa over here is getting ready to build a new city hall, and they have a community facility, community center type facility, but they're also going to have a grocery and a place you can eat, like a market you can eat at. That's kind of starting to be more and more of a trend, is trying to figure out how to fit City Hall and not such an institutional building, but more also of something that is revenue generating. And so those are trends in land use, I think, that you would want to have some case studies to present to your committee.
Do you bring that type of idea or options to the committee, or is it solely based on our committee to provide options to you?
Yeah, I mean, we can provide some of that information. Again, we have urban planners in our team that we do downtown plans, we do community plans, so we have that, those resources to be able to bring some of that information to you.
Thank you.
What you say you have urban planners? What other professional staff do you have available? Sheila, would there be engineers, architects? Would there be?
Right. We do not have any. Well, I take that back. We do have an engineer on that doesn't. We don't really do engineering work though. So, but we do have a former public works director that works with us, and then we have 3 urban planners. So we don't have any architects. So it was kind of my understanding, talking to Mr. Webb, that you guys had hired an architect already. Have you already done that, or?
We have a city architect.
Okay, a city architect. Okay, so you have someone who's been already looking at the facility.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
The engineering aspect of it, I think you would want to look at and I don't know if you have a city engineer that does site design, but I think if you get into a new site, you're going to probably want to look at that, having an engineer kind of look at that information.
Okay. Leonard, anything else?
No, I don't have any other questions.
Fred?
No other questions.
Sheila, thank you so much. Great to
All
meet
right,
you.
thanks. And when
Appreciate
are you
your
going to
help.
make a decision? Do you know? Or
We never know what we're going to do when, but we're going to talk about it at our meeting tonight. But
okay,
I don't know that we'll make a
that's what I was
decision.
checking on, so.
We like to deliberate on things.
Great. Well, if you have any other questions or you want to check any references, be happy to provide those to you. And just look forward to hearing back from you.
Great. Thanks again, Sheila.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right. You guys don't need any discussion now, do you? Okay. We will adjourn then until 4:30. You guys, thanks for being here, and I will call this meeting to order. You two are the meeting, basically, so we'll let you introduce yourselves, tell us about your company. We allotted about 15 minutes for you to tell us about Burns & Mack, and then 15 minutes for our questions, and we're a little flexible on that if you've run out of steam early or whatever, but take it away.
Great. Well, thank you for inviting us here. We appreciate the opportunity to come and tell you a little bit about Burns & McDonnell and about how we might suggest an approach to your project. So here's an agenda of the things we're going to talk through. We're going to go really fast. 15 minutes, we could talk for all day. But we're going to try to fit it all in here. So go talk a little bit about why Burns & Mack might be a good choice for you all. What we think are going to be the keys to the success for your project for the City Hall. And then how we approach projects. And then we'll have questions and answers at the end.
Okay.
So I'm Ken Schaefer. I'm on the construction side of Burns & McDonnell. I've been with the firm for a little over 3 years.
It's Larry's fault. Or Jen.
Little lights on or something? Is that better?
No, I got it.
Okay.
Wrong thing.
Sorry. All right, here we go. So I've been in the construction business for a little over 22 years. Most of it's been commercial construction with emphasis on historic adaptive reuse. So fits right with the projects you guys are proposing. And Laura and I work hand in hand as an integrated design build team, and we carry all the resources in-house to execute your projects.
Okay.
And like Ken said, I'm Laura Neese. I'm a senior architect and project manager with Burns & McDonnell. my focus throughout my career has been civic and higher ed buildings. So once again, this kind of fits right into the types of buildings that I've worked on in the past. So who are we? Who is Burns McDonnell? So we are a fully integrated design and construction firm headquartered out of Kansas City. We have over 5,000 employees. In Kansas City, we have just under 50 architects, just some various stats, 52 environmental engineers, over 200 structural engineers. I think in the last 2.5 years, we've completed 75 commercial projects.
Commercial projects similar to this. So yeah, we've got resources scattered all over the country that support projects, but a little over 2,200 professionals in the Kansas City area that we pull on to do both design and construction.
And we are 100% employee owned, and we are an ESOP. And that's not just in name. I think some companies, they say we're an ESOP, but Burns & Mac is truly an ESOP. And all of the employees take that to heart, which means they have a vested interest in the success of every project we have. And I think that's a key differentiator for us, because everyone who works on a project, their only goal is to make it successful. So some other reasons why you might think about Burns & Mac. We are recognized at the top of our class in not only design, but construction, project management.
And as one of our ultimate priorities on every project is safety. And we start every meeting and every project with defining what the safety goals of that project are. There's some stats up here that talk about where we stand from a national level. To give you the summary, we're in the top 2% of all construction companies in the United States, and we're very proud of that. And the ultimate goal is to send everyone home to their family every night safe.
And I know our time is short, but I'm going to throw in our quick safety moment, because we do it in every meeting. It's very hot out. Drink your water. Stay hydrated. So make it a short one today. Right up there with safety is quality. Once again, we have a very rigorous quality program that we put all of our projects through to make sure that what goes out the door is quality. It is constructible. It is it's coordinated. It's buildable. And this 6-step process doesn't start with just design. It starts with a fully integrated team, so that we're thinking about the construction aspects from the very beginning, because those aspects affect schedule, they affect budget, they affect quality. What we're drawing, is it buildable? Can you actually get in there and put this in the way we're drawing it? So it's a key piece to how we work together. So let's talk a little bit about what we think are some of the keys to success for your project specifically. We think there's 3 main items that are going to make your project successful. First is to build consensus. Then follow through with that consensus and stick to a budget. I think those are 3 of the most critical pieces for a project like this, especially when it's taxpayer dollars that are involved. And so how do we build consensus? How are we going to do that? So you've got a building that has a lot of stakeholders in it. You've got a lot of different departments. You've got a lot of different user groups who have very different needs from each other. So it's really important to get that input from those user groups. And so it's important to define those stakeholders. So you have your big pool of stakeholders, your users, your citizens. But to go beyond that, you really need a core group. You need to define a primary core steering team that are representatives of all of those user groups. you want the input from everyone, but you need a core group that is able to be a little bit more nimble and make decisions based upon the input that they're representing. So it's fully representational of everyone. But you have meetings with both groups, but the steering team is the core and the decision. And then you do have your secondary users. So with that, we would recommend having public meetings like this as well as steering team meetings, because you want to get that feedback. You want to give the opportunity to get feedback on how the project is progressing. So one of the ways we do that is we start off with a workshop where we come in and meet with each of the stakeholders and really validate the scope for the project. By defining the project goals and priorities, you establish the needs. What does this group need to function? Because if they don't have what they need to function, they can't function. And you separate from that the wants. So that you start from a basis of, we have to have this to operate. And then you also set your priorities for that. Now, everyone's going to have wants. And as the process goes along, you figure out how, if any of those wants can be accommodated and stay within the budget. But you let the data speak by validating the scope. I know you guys have done quite a bit of work to start establishing a program, and you've got several options that are out there right now. And I know you've been looking at this for a number of years. So what we would want to do is come in and help you to drive to a solution, to get from 6 options down to 1, right? Because that's the ultimate goal, is to figure out where are we headed. We've got a lot of options and a lot of opinions. How do we get to the 1? Well, by defining your goals and your needs, you always have that yardstick to go back to. We have to have this. This is what we have to have in order for this to work. And then you remove the emotions out of that. You have the basics. You know, there's basic needs. These have to be met. Then you can start going towards the wants, if there's budget and schedule available for that.
So one of the things that we bring to the table as we develop this program and define the wants versus needs, we can put cost and schedule implications to each different option, and then allow you to make decisions based on not only first cost but life cycle cost of the decisions that are out there to make, picking which options and so forth, with the goal ultimately of giving you enough information so that you guys can make good value decisions. And then from that initial steering committee group, take that to the rest of the teams and get their input and buy-in, and then finalize.
And by getting agreement on that basic project scope and program, you get buy-in to the whole project. Everyone understands what you're all moving towards. You're moving towards the same goal instead of having, an agenda here and an agenda here, and I think this is what we need, because you come to an agreement on what that program needs to be to work for you. So, like I said, we run a workshop where it's very interactive. It's to gather a lot of data very quickly and understand where the gaps might be in the current data that you have. I don't know exactly how old some of the options are or some of the programming, but does that meet today's needs? And I know you've had a recent change in location for some of your staff, and so that may or may not affect some of this as well. And so it's really understanding where are you starting from today and getting to your end goal.
Yeah, and in this whole process, we're basically developing not only a program, but a roadmap of how to get the project designed and constructed in the most efficient and cost-effective manner that meets your needs.
And so we focused a lot on this step one, phase one portion of it, which is really setting that program because it is so critical to the success and the path through the rest of the program. And through the second phase, which would be completing that programming and coming up with schematic designs, followed through with design development in a design build fashion. And that is something that we are big proponents of because of the benefits it can provide to you. And we'll get into some more detail of that as we...
Yeah, and this will become, between phase 2 and phase 3, it's not uncommon for us to establish a final GMP budget and or a fixed cost for a project. We have the ability to do that very early on because we have all of the resources in-house, so we're managing to a budget. We're not taking and using outside resources to go and then not having control over those things. We have control over all of those components in-house, and we basically set the budget up with everybody's buy-in, and then we go design to it.
And stick to it. And we have the sounding board to make sure that the design decisions that we're making aren't going to take us over our budget. Because I think in a traditional design, bid, construct setup, a lot of times you really don't know what your price is going to be until you put it out to bid and the day you open the bids. And in this case, you know before construction documents are probably even started.
We give our clients the level of predictability that doesn't exist with the traditional methods of executing construction. And the other thing we offer is follow through. We develop a plan during the we'll call it the workshop phase or the planning phase of the project, and we just execute that plan all the way through through turning the keys over of the project. We'll ask a lot of questions. And we'll develop a program that basically fits your level of budget, quality, and schedule that fits that time frame that you're trying to execute the project in.
I just checked our time, so we probably need to speed up a little bit.
We took an hour and a half of material and narrowed it down to 15 minutes.
The key here is, for us, is that we're all in-house. Ken sits 2 desks away from me. We are truly fully integrated. We are one team.
And our philosophy is all open book from a cost standpoint. So you see everything all of the information we produce and the level of detail that you want to see it in. When we execute the construction piece, we'll go hard bid. We'll bid to subcontractors based on scope packages. Try to get local input as much as we can. We know that's an important thing. But it's just trying to find what's the best value to fulfill the needs. And this is talks a little bit more about the budget. The traditional design bid build is roughly, you're establishing a budget really far out, and so you have a long period of time where you're guessing what that expenditure is going to be and how your cash flow is going to work. But in the design build method, we'll establish that budget or that GMP or whatever that needs to be, a fixed cost during the preliminary design. And then we design and manage the project around that budget so that you don't have to worry about cost overages or delays.
A couple quick projects that I want to highlight for you of some work that we've done. This is Independence Power and Light. Oddly enough, it was an old medical building that they acquired, and it was a full renovation for their public works offices. It's being done design build, and it's getting close to completion. I think they're done in October.
Yeah. So we'll start FF&E this month, furniture, that kind of things. Really fun project for us. The City of Independence Missouri.
Yeah.
We've been working with them for about a year and a half on this project, and it's been super fun. So we'll turn that over here in October to them, and then we're just getting ready to do the renovation of their city hall. So we're excited about that.
And then this is the Eastern Jackson County Courthouse project in Independence, Missouri. This project is a courthouse building and offices, and it stayed occupied during the course of construction. They also had some environmental issues to deal with during the construction as well, with some asbestos abatement that was needed. And they're up and running now, fully functioning, and with a lot. They added, basically the program of it was to add 4 courtrooms into the building because they had such a need for courtroom space.
So it's a lot of renovation and a little bit of addition, but having the ability to help plan the construction during the design phase, we were able to condense a schedule which was normally would have taken about 18 months to about 14 months, and then minimize the amount of interruption to the existing spaces while we were doing the construction.
And make sure that the public stayed safe, because it is a public building, and they had public coming in during this construction period. These are just a couple of images of our new world, the addition to our new world headquarters building, a lobby and a rooftop terrace that we've got. This is an awesome success story in my mind, but I don't know if you want to tout some of this.
Well, it's a 310,000 square foot facility that sits on 17 acres, which used to be an old synagogue that was abandoned about 11 years ago. So we abated it and tore it down. And from shovel and ground to occupancy was about 17 months, which is unprecedented for that amount of square footage. And we were able to do that because we built a construction schedule and then designed the building around that. And we were able to cut roughly 4 months out of the schedule. So it's a true success story for us.
And time always equals money. So it saved quite a bit on the overall construction costs.
We were able to give up leases on 2 other buildings earlier and save all those costs. So it was pretty exciting project.
So I know we've run over. So we're going to skip ahead. We've got some other projects here, but I'm going to skip to our mission statement is always to make our clients successful. And so that's what we hope we have an opportunity to do with the City of Independence. And
Yeah.
do you have anything else you want to add before we open up for questions?
Closing statement.
I just think helping you develop a consensus of what the program is, and then helping you get community buy-in. We understand that's very important. And then obviously the follow-through, putting a plan together and working that plan, and then holding to the budgets that we establish. I think those are the important things that we want to get across to you today.
Are you two the marketers, and somebody else would be here on site?
We're it.
Okay, you would be the team that would be here.
We skin it and grill it, and
Just want to make sure. I didn't know a big firm might have people that just do marketing.
yeah, it's interesting at Burns and McDonnell. We are a fairly large firm, but
Yes.
we're all business development. We're all execution.
Gotcha.
So it's what makes us a little different than a lot of other firms.
So this is a very emotionally charged issue. We lost our hospital. The hospital gave the building to the city. A lot of people would still like to see it bulldozed, and others, think, why would we not move our city hall there? Have you two personally dealt with very highly emotionally charged issues and big groups of people that will be very vocal?
Yes. I've done quite a bit of work on university campuses, and there's always a lot of input and emotion there as well as the courthouse. I worked on the courthouse project and the IPL project as well. Mm-hmm. So, yes, and that can be challenging. And the way the best way I've found to mitigate it is by getting that program well established that everyone has agreed to, because it's like I said, your yardstick. It's what you always go back to say, are we meeting the needs? Is this what we need to meet the needs? Is this more than we need to meet the needs?
And it's, I think Laura mentioned it earlier, it's about being fact-based, not emotions-based. And if we can take the emotion out of it from our standpoint and let the facts speak for themselves, you can usually dial down the emotional piece a little bit. And then the other piece is just knowledge. Knowledge usually gets people the fear of the unknown. So if we can be open with the community and the stakeholders, the primary and secondary, with here's the plan, here's how we're going to work the plan, and continually give feedback as to how we're working on the plan, I think that usually helps dial down the emotion a little bit as well. So it's meeting with the community and the stakeholders early and often to keep them informed.
How many, you said meet often, how many meetings do you think it might take?
I don't know if we can answer that yet until we understand where the gaps are or might be.
So I just finished a project that was fairly emotionally charged because it was one of those not in my backyard projects. We met with the citizens group, which at some point was over 100 every month. And we gave them updates of where we were at, how we were executing, what we were doing, and then we got feedback from them. Hey, what about this? What about that? And we have a tool internally that can do that anonymously. A lot of people don't want to stand up and say, hey, I don't like this or I don't like that. Well, we have a polling tool, and it's basically an anonymous website that you can provide feedback to.
And if you want to see it, we can demonstrate.
And we can take that information back to and print reports and get back to our steering committee and say, okay, here's what your community is saying is important to them about what we're showing them.
Right.
And then we can provide feedback and we can decide from a fact-based, do we want to execute that change or that commitment to that person? And we can put a cost and schedule to all of those things and then make it fact-based.
Okay. Getting to that consensus part, though, is big before you can even begin to look at the programming part of it that you're talking about. Polling is part of it. Could you explain your process and what procedure you'd go through to bring people to a consensus so that stage or phase could even begin, especially in a real emotionally charged atmosphere such as we have?
I do feel that the program validation needs to happen first. Meeting with the stakeholder, the people who will be in the space to understand their needs, because that gives you the base for the facts. And then you go to the larger group where there may be a lot of opinions about, oh, I think you should do this, and you think you should do that, X or Y, and they're very different. If you have your baseline of what do these user groups need, you can always go back to that. So we do have this, it looks like somebody may have tried it. we have this way to do live interactive polling, just using your phone. If you want to try it, we can show you how it works, but there's a lot of different ways that we can capture thoughts and opinions. I made these very bland. What's your favorite color? And so the way this works is you go to that website and this slide pops up and you vote on your phone, on your smartphone. You can do it from an iPad or other devices as well. And then it starts to populate as you do it right here. It can be bars. This one's a little harder to see. You can enter your own text and it'll pop up here. We can put images up, and they can vote on the images, and it shows what they're selecting as you go. So I think we can make it very interactive, and even capture their questions. They can submit their questions, so if they don't feel comfortable standing up and asking their question, we can capture that as well.
And
in
that
real
can
time.
be either live data, or we can open up that during a phase of a project where you give people a couple days to provide feedback on images and or program information that we have. But I think Laura hit it right. I think you need to establish your needs What do you really need first? And then you take that information and you can build on that.
You have full MEP structure, civil.
Yes.
You mentioned environmental engineers.
Correct.
Yes.
Also,
All in-house.
what, like, we've had some conditions in the existing building. Are your environmental engineers capable of reviewing that and addressing the issues for correction?
Yeah. Yes.
So then they would work with the construction side to determine real costs.
Yes.
Yeah.
And actually, in the folder, there's on the left-hand side, I've placed some
we have
information
a group that does both phase 1 and phase 2
about
environmental
asbestos and lead abatement.
and
They
testing
also
and
deal
inspections
with
and do all the air monitoring and everything for our group.
mold. Yeah.
So we're kind of a cradle to grave.
But you mentioned starting at the beginning, so where we've already got some options and kind of gone a direction, but you also mentioned starting at the beginning with the group. I think we've had some concerns about, preconceived ideas or emotionally charged. So you feel that by starting at the beginning, this could change the focus of an end to take a step-by-step, logical, systematic approach to find a solution? Is
Yeah,
that what you're saying?
I don't think you throw out the information that you've
Right.
done because you've
No.
done a ton of legwork. But I think we want to validate that and get it into a concise program. What are the needs? It's all about what the needs are.
Right.
And then you go design a building around it. Or you renovate a building around it.
Right.
But it's understanding what are the criteria that you're building that around. The architecture, which is amazing, doesn't mean anything if you don't have a program that works for you.
And like you said, I think there's 6 options right now out there. Those 6 options meet different needs. They don't all meet the same set of needs. They address different things. And so I think that's where establishing up front the hard set, we have to have this or it's not going to work. We'd like to have this, maybe. And then what are the other goals or outcomes that are important to the user groups in the community? And some of those, you have to establish them to be able to dial back, look at them and compare the options to. And some of those aren't as factual, like I have 4 chairs that I need because I have 4 employees and they need 4 desks, right? That's pretty set. But you're going to have other things like, man, the value of this building to our community is so important. And so we're not saying you ignore any of those, but you prioritize them and understand amongst the group what are the things that are going to drive this project. And then you use that as your baseline throughout the process. As you're looking at options, you always go back to them. Does this option meet these needs that we all said, these are our priorities, these are our programmatic needs?
And then you look at it from where you're at right now, where the program is right now versus where does it want to be 20 years from now. And you got to look at it from a life cycle cost or a life cycle analysis as well. And then we put cost to all of those things so that you understand the first cost, life cycle cost. What does this mean if we renovate the existing building? What does it mean from a first cost, life cycle cost? And then you can do an analysis. Then everything becomes fact-based. It's all about getting the emotion out of the facts, and then you present that information. And then in a charged environment, if you stay fact-based, then you don't incite, so to speak.
We've talked about appointing a committee to make this decision, work with our facilitator. Do you have an idea of optimum size of that committee?
I would have a representative from each constituency or each group that's going to be occupying the space. And then I would have a ultimate who's the decision maker within the community. Is that the city manager, or who makes that? Who ultimately has final say in how things move forward, or is that if that is the a group of people, we want those people as part of this of the committee, because those are the people making the initial decisions, and then we go sell that to the community, because that's what we're doing. We're putting together a program. We're going to do some design, and then we're going to go sell it to people. And our job is to go sell it with your help.
So did I get an answer to my question? Approximate number of people that's optimum on that?
I don't know that we know that. No.
I want to say you had 9 maybe user groups, plus the.
When you're talking about user groups, you're talking about staff using the building, not citizens in the community, correct?
The citizens would be one of the user groups.
Yeah.
So we would want someone from that user group, the citizens group, to be on the steering team to represent them.
We'd also like, though, to include the citizens, the taxpayers, stakeholders in this whole process.
Yeah,
How could you
and I think
integrate-
there's definitely a role for them in the process.
How do you integrate them into, other than just go sell them something? They've got to understand that they have
Absolutely.
input into.
Right.
And
Right.
that-
And that's
Ken-
when you do public forums and
Ken
have
was talking about
discussion
those monthly meetings.
It's getting feedback from them as we move through the process.
But I think in the selling part, what Ken's trying to relay too is those user groups who are actually in the building, and they're going to be telling us how many staff members they have, and how many fire trucks, what apparatus need to be housed. While the community may have an opinion on that, there's a fact-based side of that, and so I think it's important to take those facts to the community as part of the buy-in too. And that's the kind of the steps along the way of before that program gets finalized, it's discussed amongst the citizens as well.
I think what we had talked about, what you're describing is the preparation of a design program to be the guiding point on evaluating the options, and the user group within the facility has to help provide that information. What we had, I guess, talked besides after the program was a citizens group that would be educated to help look at the options, to come with a recommendation of all of the options by analyzing the program that you prepare and evaluating the options, explaining it to them, then they could come with a recommendation
And
Kind
to
of like
the
a
commission.
pre-meeting.
And what
Yeah.
we've done in the past, and I'm just going by my past experiences, it's been an open forum for anybody who wants to come. And if there's 10 people that show up, you meet with 10 people every month. And if 100 people show up, you meet with 100 people. And it could take 15 minutes, and it could take 4.5 hours. And I've been in those. And you get feedback, and then you take that feedback and you go back to your key committee, stakeholders, and decide which ones of these need to be implemented into that. And then you come back the next month and say, okay, here are the changes we made. Here's the new program and or design or whatever it may be, and provide feedback again. And you go through, it's a process. And depending on how fast we want to move, that process could be every week for 5 weeks or every month for 5 months. And it just depends on the plan that we put together as we pull our workshop together and figure out a roadmap of how to attack this thing, because there's a lot of information, a lot of questions we want to ask. And once we do that, we'll put a plan together and we'll go implement it.
There's more than just city hall requirements or needs infrastructure-wise here. There's water plant, streets, sewers, on and on. Other facilities. How do you integrate that into a budget so that we don't put all our eggs in one basket and all the other baskets are left blank or left empty?
And that's going to be huge. And we put some propaganda information in there from some of our other groups that we can pull in to support us in whatever that master plan for your community is. So
So
if you
in a
have
lot of
5
ways,
other projects, wastewater, water.
This has potential to be an overall city master plan.
So you do have civil that would be able to evaluate streets and develop budgets for it on
Yes.
that, and you've got engineers for water treatment,
We do.
sewer treatment.
We have transportation
Absolutely.
engineers and
Actually,
water.
fo-
We have a whole group that's
engineers
all
who
they do.
focus only on water. Engineers who focus on, so they know their stuff.
Recent project I did, we had, I was the project manager. I used our water group, pulled 2 engineers in because we reconstructed a jurisdictional waterway. We basically rerouted it, so we had to go through the Corps of Engineers, do permitting. We had wetlands issues. We brought all those resources in from in-house, and we said, how do we go plan this thing to make it all work, and what's the paper process, and what's it cost, and all these things. So, and then we had to do a right turn in, left turn out on a state highway.
Traffic
Same
study.
project. So brought the transportation boys in, and we solved that. We bring them in as we need them, the resources, and we have them in-house. So we're not outside hiring consultants, and that I go run down the hallway and I have somebody on the shoulder and say, hey, I need your help. Here's our problem. Help me solve this.
Is that part of your design build team also?
Yep.
For
Yeah, we bring all of those resources to the table.
so your costs compared to the, what you call it, design bid build compared to design build, that your cost for the final product is going to be more accurate?
It's going to be very predictable. If we can define the scope of work.
So with the
We can give
GMP, you're
you-
talking about a guaranteed maximum price, which means that would be the absolute max
That you would pay for the scope of work that,
that
we
you would
agree
pay
on.
for the scope of work,
You betcha.
which then basically sets or turns out to be the budget, for lack of a term,
Yep.
Yes.
that you proceed with.
Yeah, we'll work with you to define the scope and the program, and then we'll put a budget together and we'll go work. We'll manage around. We'll design to it with all your wants and needs that we all agree to.
You good, Fred?
Mm-hmm.
Leonard?
I think so, thank you.
All right. Thanks so much. We appreciate you coming.
I appreciate
Thank you.
very
Thank
much
you.
you guys having us.
All right.
We're very excited.
We are adjourned.